Delighted to say we've got Kenny Cunningham and Jonathan Walters with us. Lads, you're both very welcome. Jonathan, I want to start with you because I know that you've had some personal tragedy in your family recently and you're raising money for it with a raffle and some amazing prizes, particularly for Republic of Ireland fans. It's the jersey that you scored a very famous goal for us in.
Yeah, look, the beginning of the month, my cousin who lived in Australia, he's from that south, but he's a chef and he'd married recently, and he had a 2-year-old son, and he passed away very suddenly and sadly and unexpectedly, and he's left behind obviously a young wife and a 2-year-old son. He was the only one who worked in the family, so the whole family are trying to get together and get some money and try and support them and help them in any way we can. So I thought, one of the most important things during my playing career was that shirt I played in that night against Bosnia. So that one, the match worn shirt I had from that match, and rather than do it an auction or through eBay or anything like that, I thought I'd do it in a raffle way where I just said make a donation to a Just Giving page, which all goes to support his widow and his 2-year-old son. And I think I said put a $5 Australian donation, which is about £2.50, £2.60, something like that over here. And I'll pick a random one over the next couple of weeks to win it.
Sorry, how do people make the donation? We'll tweet the link to it, obviously, if anybody isn't here. But what's the easiest way to get onto that, Jonathan?
Just on my social media pages, so through Twitter and Instagram. I think I've left the link in my sort of bio right at the top of the page, and you just click on that link, it takes you straight to it.
And there's obviously also Burnley, Ipswich and other various jerseys from your career as well. From an Ireland perspective, obviously that was a hugely special night for us, so hopefully hundreds and thousands of people will actually just donate and be with a chance of winning that. So and we'll, as I said, we'll retweet that tweet, that the original one, so if anybody is looking for it. Let's talk a little bit about football. Jonathan, we talked at the very start about this, about football coming back behind closed doors, and it seems like then you were very much of the opinion that it's not going to be quite the real deal. How do you feel now, watching it with the crowd noise or watching it without crowd noise?
I think that's the biggest bugbear for me. We all love football being back. For so long without it, everyone was desperate for it to come back. But Kenny will know this. The game's not the same as with the fans in the stadium. I think players feed off that energy, the atmosphere that they create in the stadium, and without that, it's just not the same. It's almost like some teams are not going through the motions, but it just seems a pre-season friendly type game. And you can tell the teams like City, Wolves, Liverpool, those teams that'll be so difficult to play against in this type of game. It's a completely different match for me than no one playing it. I think it's a completely different match than when fans are in the stadium. So that's a difficult thing, and I've got to switch the fan noise off because it's not real. I like to hear what people are saying as well, a little bit of communication on the pitch.
Kenny, what are you watching, with or without the crowd noise?
Well, I haven't got the option. I wouldn't know how to switch it off, to be honest. I don't mind the crowd noise. I understand what John's saying, but I've been listening to it on the kind of German football there for a while, and it seems a lot better. I think the timing's everything, John, with the crowd noise. There's no point when a shot whistles over the crossbar and 3 seconds later you hear the big oop from the So for me, the timing is absolutely everything. I don't mind it so much, actually, the bit of noise. And I take John's point in regards to level of intensity in some of the games. I've noticed a distinct difference between some of the kind of German, even the Italian. I've watched some of the Italian football of late, the Coppa Italia semi-finals. Don't know if you have, John. And it's been good quality games. The tempo, the energy levels have been high. Good tempo to the games, moving the ball well. Almost the fitness levels of the players seem to be at a higher level than some of the English teams that I've seen. So that's interesting. Just in terms how that comes back to maybe how the teams have been training their physical conditioning during the time they've been off. But by and large, I've enjoyed the football. The games last night were okay, although a little bit one-sided. I enjoyed Chelsea's performance at Aston Villa the weekend. Even the Spurs-Manchester United game, particularly second half, I thought was a decent standard. Yeah, there has been a little bit of dross sprinkled around that, but by and large, it's good to have the football back.
Can I just specifically, sorry Dave, before you come in on that, the Chelsea game at the weekend, Damien Delaney was on co-com for us and made a great point with 5 minutes left to go. Villa are chasing it, they're at the bottom of the table, they're at home, they just need to lump the ball forward and get the crowd going and put a bit of pressure on Chelsea, and it was flat. There was nothing happening. There was no even kind of, there was no cavalry charge in the last 10 minutes. And it seems to me that actually that's a real thing. The crowd G and the team up, putting a bit of pressure on the opposition, that is a real thing. That, like, we have now, that's gone. And that those teams at the bottom of the table, they're not going to be scraping out last-minute equalisers.
No, I think the only way you're going to get that is a bit of fatigue in the last. You see the teams that are a little bit fitter in the last 5 or 10 minutes, because that'll be a huge factor. But definitely, look, the said all along, people get a bit nervous the last 5 or 10 minutes of the game. The fans really give you that energy in the stadium. You feel it as a player. You feel the whole momentum going your way, especially when you're chasing something and you're fighting for something. So I think that's the biggest difference you will see there was always a team that went on a late run, wasn't there? You know, Sunderland did it for so many years, and the crowd were right behind them and used to get so many late-minute goals. I don't think we'll see that this year.
Kenny, I'd be interested in getting your thoughts on that as well, because I know, unfortunately for you in your career, you did have some experience of what it was like to be in a relegation scrap. And I've heard guys like Gary Breen, Kevin, talking about the tension already within a team that is battling against the drop when they're playing in front of their own fans. There's almost a sense of anxiety from the kickoff that something's going to go wrong, that as soon as a player puts a ball out of play or overhits a pass or misses an open goal, that the whole energy drains out of the stadium, and that in the first half in particular, it can get on top of particularly a young team. So if you flip that, I get Ger's point on the last 10 minutes. If you want the whole end at Villa Park right behind you for a final 10-minute charge. But for the rest of the game, is there a way that it could actually help some of the teams who are looking to avoid the drop, that it's just them, it's just the 11 players on the pitch, and they don't have to worry about what's going on in the stands?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. For me, it is a twin-edged sword. I've played in relegation teams almost entirely the course of my career. And it does, those moments, like last 6-8 games of the season, those home games, there's almost a fear factor there. Generally speaking, you're not playing well. The confidence levels are low. There's tension in the crowd. There might be an initial surge of enthusiasm when you come on the pitch, the opening periods of the game. But very quickly that can dissipate. One misplaced pass, missed tackle, overhit pass, and very quickly you can get a sense of that tension and players retreat into their shells. So in some respects, you could argue home support for the teams in the relegation end of the tables actually should be an advantage, maybe not having that that tension around the stadium amongst the home supporters, because it does translate to the players. And I've seen kind of younger players kind of fold a little bit in that kind of environment. I just think it's overplayed a little bit, actually, the actual crowd for me. I understand the arguments for and against, but for me, they're very minuscule. And I think it's pretty weak, to be honest with you, when I hear when I hear people talking about players losing their focus. There's no crowd there. They're just drifting mentally. They can't quite get themselves focused where they need to be. I just think you're in a pretty weak mental state if that's the case. I mean, John will know. I mean, I've by and large, training sessions even. You come into the training ground the midweek, the manager sticks up an 11v11, all the bibs are out. Might be maybe 30 minutes each way on the training pitch, kind of proper game. They've been some of the most kind of intense games I've ever played on the training pitch against your own players, like pretty sterile environment. But it's kind of game on. It's a competitive game of football, and you should really be able to zone in and get on with it. Shouldn't be a question mark in terms of, well, there's no crowd here and I'm not really feeling, I just can't quite get myself to the level that I need to be at. When I start hearing those things come out of a football club from players at certain football clubs, I begin to get very worried about their prospects going forward. If that's the kind of mentality, if that's how brittle the mentality is among certain players at a football club.
I don't know about that, Kenny. I think you look at home form in teams, you look at home form and how down the years, home form's huge for teams. Every pitch is the same. You could say you go on a training pitch, they make the pitches exactly the same as the stadium, and near enough every pitch is the same. So there is something there, whether it's familiarity of your home stadium, and you can go into the mental state of players and people who looked at it down the years. Can you change the hotel? Can you bring your own pillows? Can you do that? Can you make it as homely as possible? There is something there, but there's also certain individuals that will also feed off the crowd. I think of one off the top. Craig Bellamy was a good one. Craig Bellamy used to feed off the hate that the crowd used to give him, and you have people like that. And I used to, in a way, I used to enjoy the crowd being there, and it's different. But you always remember those 11v11 games, a training game, and you'll play against. Sometimes you'll bring the under-18s over and the 23s over. Sometimes you'll play the 11 that are not playing. We'll play against the 11 that are playing the next day. And a lot of the times, the team that you wouldn't think would win would win. It wouldn't be the first team that would win the game or give it a good game. It'll be the bomb squad or the young lads that'll turn the first team over. So I don't know. For me, I think they do play a huge part. But you're right in what you're saying. You can't blame it on the crowd. You can't say, oh, the crowd's not getting me going. You're a professional footballer. You should be getting up there. But there is something there. And as a player, I always fed off the energy of the crowd, whether it be for or against me.
What about those teams who are in limbo, where they're not in a relegation battle and they're not really going to be troubling either the Champions League or qualifying for Europe? It looks like some of those teams, Palace, for example, are not as sharp maybe as they would have been if this game, last night's game, for example, had been played when it was supposed to be played. Is it very hard for that team to get motivated to come back into, I don't know how many seasons you would have been involved in where you would have been safe with 7-8 games left to go, Jonathan, and like...
A shake of the head from Kenny there.
Not many. Safe with 7 games to go. You're mad.
There's always something to play for, isn't there? There's always, as a player, you always say a manager's what? 4 games away from the sack. If a manager gets beaten 4 games on a run, the pressure's on him. There's always things to play for. There's always, especially now, I think there's a great chance to throw young players in with no crowd getting on the back there a little bit and give them a chance to shine and feel like they can do well in a Premier League setting. There's always those players coming through. There's players going for contracts. There's a lot of teams always trying to get in this sort of top 10. We need to get in the top 10. But the clubs, there's so much money at stake for every place. Managers are on bonuses, players are on bonuses. There's all sorts of things thrown into the mix. I'll never say there's nothing to play for.
But there were some players, John. John, you must remember being part of squads where you were safe with 10 games to go. And not every professional would have had the same attitude as you. Can you recall guys you would have been playing with where you can noticeably see a drop-off in their application levels because mentally maybe they've already checked out?
Trying to think, and probably the majority of the time was at Stoke, wasn't I? We were always desperate to get in the top 10. I think we missed out on it by the last game, about 2 or 3 seasons. The manager was fuming because I think he was on a big bonus if we got in the top 10. And I'm trying to think that there was always 1 or 2 that just went sort of, that I'd switch off and start going out more and being late for training and things like that. You could see a mental shift on a couple, but I think it's up to the group of players, and we had a strong group, so we wouldn't let it sort of go. And there was always a thing about Tony Pulis' teams, wasn't it? He dropped off after they got safe, but it wasn't the case of us at Stoke. I think we were always trying to go for it, but the last couple of weeks we had a couple of people go missing for a couple of weeks. A few nights out, it just carried on, I think, all the way, and things like that. But
I never got nights out. I think, lads, there's a point there. I've been inside start. The one thing I used to hate start of the season, John, you might have heard, when manager stood in front of the players, and first thing he said was, right, 40 points, lads. 40 points. This was before the ball had been kicked at the start of the season. And you'll hear that repeated week in, week out for like the first kind of 5 months of the season. And I think it does affect the mentality a little bit. If you do get into that position kind of February, March, April, you hit that 38, 40 point barrier. You've heard it so often during the season. This is what we're striving for, 40 points, staying up, staying out of the relegation. This is all that matters. When you do reach that point, it almost is, there is a mental switch of the button in your head. Very different for the manager then, having been preaching this mantra of 40 points all season, to suddenly stand in front of the players again at the start of April and say, listen, lads, forget about those 40 points we've been talking about all season. Let's kind of reset and go again for 50 or European football. So I always cringe when I hear the manager early in the season. We know the teams generally are going to be competing at the end of the season, who come out and say it's all about staying up, 38 points, that's all we're interested in. We're interested in nothing above that. Because for me, that's planting the wrong seed in the mindset in the psyche of your players.
No, I'd agree. There was a lot of managers that would do that, and you'd see they switch off, and anything else was a bonus after that 38, 40 points. The longer you get into the season, you look at Southampton, Brighton now. They're like that now. 2 more wins, we get to 39, 40 points. But I think at the start of the season, you're right. We had a really good one with Mark Hughes at Stoke when he came in. He used to break the season down into, I think it was 5 sections, and he'd get all the teams and the games up, and he'd say, "Come on, get your points. Get where do you think you'll win? Where do you think you'll lose?" And it was surprising where you think you could get to, and results wouldn't go your way. And if you hit certain targets during the season, but he was all about breaking records. Can we break the record from last year? Can we have most goals scored, most wins, most home wins, most away wins? And he set a good structure up all the way through. And to be fair, you can say it worked, because every season he went on, I think at Stoke, he broke some sort of record of where the club was progressing in terms of place in the table or consecutive top 10 finishes. Can you get into 9, 8? Where can you break up to? Can you push it for Europa League? So I like that the way he did it, rather than at the start of the season you're saying 38, 40 points. Yeah.
It's funny, we just had Pat Lam on, who was the Connacht coach that won at Pro 14, and now he's at Bristol Bears, and he was saying, you know, you actually need to aim really high, because if you don't aim really high, then you begin to settle and you make accommodations along the way, and all of a sudden it's very hard to shift that mindset from, we're trying to reach. So he was talking about Ireland in rugby and how, we really want to reach a World Cup semi-final, and he's like, why not try and win it, lads? You know, like, actually have that ambition, as opposed to, because once you get to the semi-final, it's like, well, we can retire now. And that's interesting to hear that Mark Hughes was like that and able to break it down. Was Mark Hughes a good manager?
Yeah. People always say who you're best and who you're worst, and I never pick anyone as a bad manager. Everyone had their own way of doing things. Some managers you'll enjoy more, enjoy the trainer more. The coaches will take it. Some managers really hands-on. Mark, he didn't take the training every day. He took it sometimes. He left it to Eddie Nowitzki and Mark Bowen, and the training was really good, really enjoyable. Damien Roden had a big part of that, and then he was quite quiet. He'd step in when it's needed. He didn't particularly like confrontation. Some managers would like that, but I don't think you can look at his sort of record with Stoke over the years and say he did a bad job, because we were in the top 10 so many times, and that was the aim of the club, to keep on progressing. You can probably question signings towards the end of his tenure at Stoke, but then you've got to throw a director of football and other people into the mix as well, and how many decisions does he make? So, I enjoyed it with him. I enjoyed my time with him. I enjoyed Tony Pulis at Stoke. I enjoyed Mark at Stoke, and there was never any ill feelings or anything like that when I got left out towards the end, or when I left the club. I'm never like that with anyone. Don't hold grudges. So I bumped into him a couple of times since leaving Stoke, and I really enjoyed my time with him at Stoke, and it was a really good group of lads, and still a lot of people to speak to there from the time under Mark.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask a little bit about Manchester United's performance last night, Kenny. Dave was comparing them to Barcelona a little bit earlier on. I'm not misquoting you there, Dave, am I?
Yes, you are actually misquoting me. And I mean, it's unsurprising for you, Ger. Kenny, the point, I'll make it on my own behalf, if that's okay, and avoid Ger putting words in my mouth. I was saying at times they looked like Barcelona, but I suspected that was far more to do with the fact they were playing against a weakened Sheffield United team that didn't really put it up to them at all. Because in the last half an hour in particular, I'm not sure Sheffield United had the ball for more than 2 or 3 passes. United absolutely dominated them. So how much do you read into the United performance, the qualification being that they weren't really up against much last night?
No, I don't buy into that. You've got to give Sheffield United a lot more credit than that. They've been one of the most organised teams in the Premiership this season, set up really well by the manager. Very cohesive unit, in and out possession in the football. Don't make it easy for you to play. So I don't quite buy into that. And they're up against no opposition. I think you have to give Manchester
Well, they were
United...
very poor, Kenny. Very poor against Newcastle earlier in the week. Awful against Newcastle.
Yeah, they weren't great. Like, obviously, had a man sent off. John got sent off as well, didn't he? But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is I'm looking at Manchester United and their team transformed. And it's no surprise, really. And it's all about that midfield combination. It's having Pogba and Fernandes on the pitch in that midfield area. I mean, it's totally transformed the team from a creative point of view. We've all known about the sprinkling of talent United have high up the pitch with the likes of Martial, Rashford, Young, Greenwood was going to develop into an outstanding player, but it was all about the supply and that central midfield area. Who's got the craft, the quality in terms of their passing ability and that kind of link-up play. And with Hernandez and Pogba now in those almost advanced number 8 positions, although Pogba at times played a little bit deeper last night, that's the missing part for me, because it's totally transformed the team. I mean, Fernandes' ability to get forward and interact with the front three, Pogba as well, the goal scoring threat which they possess. They actually look as if now they enjoy playing with each other. I think the last Martial goal, you saw the ball from Pogba head up, picking out Fernandes 20 yards higher up the pitch, a little ball around the corner. That kind of combination play from midfield into forward areas of the pitch, we weren't seeing that the first half of the season for Manchester United. There's a little bit clunkier, the likes of McTominay, Fred and kind of Matic in those midfield areas. No disrespect to them, they're different type of players. So it's a huge plus for Manchester United, and it's the big question between now and the end of the season. Can Solskjaer sit down with Paul Pogba and thrash out his future and get a commitment to Pogba that he's going to not only he's going to see out next season, but maybe commit himself medium to long term to the football club? Because with Pogba and Fernandes in those 2 number 8 positions in midfield, with a whole midfielder behind them, you can take your pick. Fred and McTominay, I'd imagine Matic is not for the medium to long term. Fred, for me, prior to the lockdown, was probably looking like the one he could trust in that holding midfield position. And you need somebody very quick, dynamic in that area, the pitch, defensively minded, because if you're going to integrate Fernandes and Pogba into the team and those advanced midfield positions, you need to be able to trust that holding midfield to kind of sweep up behind them. But I've liked what I've saw with United. They're playing with real confidence, and it's the kind of presence and personality of Fernandes and Pogba for me, which has been instrumental and will continue to be so going forward.
John, Martin Tyler asked Gary Neville on commentary last night how surprised he was by the significance of the influence of Fernandes so early. I'd say he was the kind of player you'd love to have played with. Every touch is dripping with intent. It may not always come off, but he's always looking to play the ball forward. He's always looking to play around the corner, always looking to play it in behind. Have you been surprised with the massive influence he's having? He almost looks like a leader of that team already, taking all the set pieces, all the penalties. He's mouthy. We saw him giving a bit of guff to Pep Guardiola before the lockdown. He just seems like he was made to be playing in that United team.
It doesn't surprise me, no, because for me, he's a world-class player. That's why he's gone to a club for such a fee to Manchester United. And there's nothing better when I was playing, I was always a player that always tried to get him behind. Very rarely would I try to come to feet. My first look would always be getting him behind. And if someone can land on the ball and always look to put you in, there's nothing better. Always looking positive going forward. As a player, as a coach, you saw coaches going in and saying your first look has always got to be forward. It's always got to be positive. I used to hate players that used to just get it off the defence and pass it back and always go back and keep it slow. If you can go forward, go forward. And it looks like he's a player that does that. It's simple, go forward and join in. If you can't go forward, go sideways. If you can't go sideways, go back. It's very simple if you think of it like that, but it's hard to do for some players. It's a safe option sometimes to just play it back and go there, but he looks like he's just slotted in. And it doesn't surprise me at all for a player of that stature to go in. And I think Man United needed it, didn't they? They needed someone in there to really take hold of that midfield. Pogba, who weren't missing, who was injured for a long time, and wouldn't really make an impact. Fred there, McTominay, a young lad, who was going to get hold of that United midfield and really drive it, and he looks like to be the one. And to be fair, what a signing to pull off, and it seems to be the perfect player that they needed to bring a lot of it all together. And if you've got Martial in front, Rashford in front, pace like that, and people that are always going to try to get him behind, you've got a great combination of their players. You look at the Liverpool team, you look at last night, Salah's goal, as soon as Fabinho landed on it, you have 4 players that came short and pulled the defence on midfield. There was a big gap, and if you look at Salah's run, it was always out to win. He's constantly making those runs, and if Fernandes can have that, link-up play with Rashford and Martial in that team, you're looking at great attacking forces. And back to the United of old that we used to see, that were constantly attacking back in the early 2000s, and when they were winning everything, they were constantly attacking. It was always goals from them, and you had people driving the midfield at the time, and hopefully you can get that back, because they've always been one of the biggest teams in the world. It was great to have them back contending for the Premier League again with Liverpool, City, and the more teams you can get going to the league like that and improving, then great. And Solskjaer said he's not there yet. There's money there to be spent on certain players, the right players, and he seems to have complete control on the right players he wants at the club now. Then they might be a contender in time to come, and they're showing all the good signs of going the right way.
Yeah, getting a hit like Fernandes would give anybody confidence that he knows what he's doing in the transfer window. There was 2 other quick stories about Irish players that I just wanted to get your take on. I might start with Jeff Hendrick and the possibility of him going to AC Milan. We were having this conversation a little bit earlier on about how the pace of play in Italian football might actually be something that suits Hendrick. And it was interesting when Sean Dyche was issuing his statement thanking him, he said that he played very well in a lot of different positions. And I think, Jonathan, it would be great to hear you explain to us a little bit about what his role was within the Ireland team, because it seems like he played quite a lot of different positions as opposed to just midfield or right side of midfield for Ireland, and that might have had an impact on his ability to impact games a little bit.
It is. If you look at players, you'll have certain players in fixed positions. You'll always have centre-halves. You'll have players that will play as wing-backs in the 3. You'll have players like your traditional left-back, right-back. Then you'll have a sitting midfielder, and for years it's been Glenn Whelan. That's his sort of position. And Jeff, because he's technically very good, and he is very, very good technically on both feet in tight areas and everything, and because he's a good lad and he'll work extremely hard for the team, and I've seen how hard he works day in, day out, and then just through the stats and things like that, then you will get moved around quite a lot because you'll do a job, and you might not be doing a 10 out of 10 every week, but you do a job that the manager will trust you in that position, and he'll trust to move you around. Sometimes then you'll get a little bit lost in terms of the manager and the players will know what you're doing for the team, but the fans might be like, "Oh, what's Jeff doing playing? He's not doing great." But really, as a player, when he's in your team, he's doing a great job for you. So, for years for Burnley, he's played. They did play 2 up front for a while, and he was sort of before I came, they were playing 2 up front with Vokes and Barnes, and he was sort of midfielder then, but he might go right, he might go left. But then when they played 1 up front, he was that one that played in behind, and he didn't really have a role of a midfielder. He was trying to make runs in behind, and he wouldn't really get on the ball a lot. And it was really frustrating for him, and I could see it. It was frustrating for him, and I knew it was frustrating for him because I'd speak to him. And then when they come in the Ireland setup, it's depending who you play against and who you're setting up against and where you position him. A great one for me was the Italy game, which was it was the other day. It was 4 years ago, wasn't it? And the other day they played in a diamond, and they moved them around with Robbie and Jeff and Wes, and it worked really well. And for me, that was his position. He can rotate in the field, he can get on the ball, he can turn, he can go forward, he can drive, he can link up with the strikers. You get him around the edge of the box. He has an unbelievable shot on him as well. And he has a bit of freedom there rather than just being, look, you're going to play behind the striker. You're going to be a number 10. We're not going to play to link up through you because 95% of our play is going to be long. So we want you to get in the channel balls and pick up second balls. And really, that's not his role. I think Jeff's technically a very good player. He's probably been frustrated. He's been great that he's been playing Premier League so long for Burnley, but he's been frustrated because it's not his preferred role. And if he went to an Italian team or something like that, the pace will be slower, but Jeff can play at a high tempo. Just put him in the right position to play in that. He's very good with his feet technically in tight areas at other midfielders. You put him in a box in a training game, it's very hard to get it off, and he can move the ball very quickly, and he's a powerful player.
Kenny, the other story that I just wanted to get your take on was Stephen Ireland's back in the paper saying that he wants to make a bit of an Ireland comeback to just to put a bow or to maybe...
A bit like John Fair. I'm going to come back.
I almost didn't recognise him. I mean, the rest of the world has gone shaved heads in lockdown, and Jonathan Walters has this amazing... Where has this been all your life, Jonathan?
Paying him a compliment before we came on air.
This morning, yeah. It's a lockdown haircut, isn't it? It's just grown. The grey's still in there. To be fair, when I was a player, I always wanted it short. I always wanted to look like I was, it had to be sharp and look like I meant business.
Ireland's George Clooney.
This is the longest it's ever been. It might stay as well, I don't know. It might stay. I tell you what, without product in now, it's out of control. It needs the water or gel in it because it gets very bushy. I
see a future for you for endorsements here. Look, your agent should be recommending that you keep it. Whoever your agent is these days, it's like, look, keep it. It suits you. Speaking of hair, Stephen Ireland, Kenny, any chance of a comeback for Ireland when he's not even playing football at the moment? Is this pie in the sky, or do you think it's possible?
Well, you've caught me by surprise there. I hadn't heard that story personally. It's good to hear he has the kind of motivation, still got the ambition that he wants to come back and play for Ireland.
Am I hearing this right, Steve? Is that right?
Yes. So he did an interview yesterday with Daniel Taylor in The Athletic, and apparently he's training with Bruno Fernandes. Footage emerged of himself and a couple of the other Man United players. Who's he with? So he's with Bruno Fernandes and
Diogo Dalot. Yeah,
and they're training, and he wants to play. You played with him for a good while, didn't you, Johnny?
Yeah. Look, technically, Stevie was always one of the best players in training. It was just, and he had a terrible injury. To be fair, he had a really bad leg break, really bad. It took him a long time to try and come back from that. I don't think he was ever right when he came back at the time I was at Stoke. Technically, though, he was up there, but he was one of those where he'd be so good in training that you wouldn't really see the best of him in a game, whether it be some injuries. A few times I did play with him now. So I was talking about players before that always look forward, always look to put you in. He put me in quite a few times. I used to love playing with him in behind. As soon as he got turned, I'd already made my run before he left the ball and he could see it. Well, I just don't know. I'll come by. You caught me by surprise here as well. I saw him playing a Man City charity game not too long ago, and he was looking. Well, it was about a year ago actually. He wasn't looking
a bit chunky.
He was looking a little bit heavy. I know he likes his mad training. He goes on random training sessions and does all sorts. So whether he's got himself really fit, I don't know. Do you fancy come back, Kenny? Me and you as well.
Do you know what? Good luck. At least he's got a bit of ambition. It's unlikely, you have your time and that's it. You move on. But you know what? We were talking about kind of positive vibes. Nice to hear some positive energy from people. So I'd say good luck to him. I take your point in terms of his career. From a technical level, you're talking about Jeff, John. Stephen was as good as anything I've seen. I didn't play with him up close. I didn't have to look at him on the screen. I think, oh my God, this lad in terms of his close control, ball manipulation, and like you said, getting himself into half turn and playing was as good as if he came along just in a different era, maybe at a different time, he could easily have been a player. He could be talking about 70 or 80 Ireland caps. He really was that good.
You know what? If he's been training, as you said there, he does live in the area and he's friendly with a lot of those players. He lives in that sort of Hale, Wilmslow, Oldley Edge area, and if he is doing training, he might be doing the small-sided stuff or the technical stuff, and he's probably thinking, I'm as good as DZ, and he is. To be fair, he will be. He will be as good. Yeah. But I think top level now, is you're an athlete. I think you've got to do it for 90 minutes. You're an athlete. So if he is thinking about a comeback, at what level that'll be, I don't know. Because I think at Premier League level, even Championship now, it is full on. You've got to be an athlete for 90 minutes, and these players aren't just technically good. They're machines now. It's like highly tuned machines. It's very difficult. So if you can get him in any sort of I don't know. I don't know whether he's out on you one or not. I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That sentence almost reached an end. It didn't quite make it there. Lads, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million. The Peter Brady Memorial Fund is available on GoFundMe, and the link is in Jonathan Walters' Twitter bio as well. It's the Ireland versus Bosnia match-worn shirt. A big night in Irish football history, and a big night in Jonathan Walters' career, and the match-worn shirt from that is available. You just need to make a donation to a very good cause, and as I said, we'll tweet that, and the link is in Jonathan Walters' bio as well. Good stuff, lads. Thanks a million for being with us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
I want to tell you about this. A reminder that as all of the sport begins to return, Now TV has all of the sports channels you need in 2 separate packs. You can watch Sky Sports on the Now TV Sky Sports Pass, and you can watch BT Sport and Premier Sports on the Sports Extra Pass. So these passes are available as a day, a week or a month pass options, and they allow you to stream live sports like Premier League, Serie A, PGA Tour Golf, Formula 1 and many more. You can search Now TV Sports to find out more.